My sister and I are both princesses of a fallen kingdom. On the day the city fell, enemy soldiers tried to assault us, and my sister pushed me forward. She thought I would surely die, but unexpectedly, I was saved by the enemy regent and became his princess consort. Meanwhile, my sister was reduced to slavery, suffering unbearable hardships every day. My sister killed me in hatred, and we were reborn together. This time, she rushed to leave with the enemy soldiers first. Sister, this time. The princess consort can only be me. She didn't know I never wanted to be the princess consort, born with royal blood. If I must act, then I shall be the empress who restores the kingdom. My personal maid, me.Reborn, wept bitterly yet still firmly covered my mouth with her hand. Not far away, enemy troops were wantonly slaughtering, swinging blades and loosing arrows to murder my family, turning the palace into a river of blood. Mother, sob, tears blurred my vision as I whimpered softly. The Queen Mother seemed to notice me with a glance. Once dignified and elegant, she now lay kicked to the ground, splattered with blood and filth, her lips parted painfully, silently forming the words, "Run, run fast." I wanted to rush out to protect her, but me.Reborn struck the back of my neck with her hand. Darkness swallowed my vision instantly. When I regained consciousness, me.Reborn was already carrying me on her back as we fled through secret passages. "Me.Reborn," I murmured, my mind still foggy. Me.Reborn's voice carried tenderness, yet couldn't conceal its heaviness. Has Her Highness awakened? I immediately recalled everything that had happened in the palace. Deep within my left chest, sharp waves of pain surged forth. Unable to bear it, I raised my hand to press lightly against my chest. My throat felt clogged with something agonizing and stinging as my voice emerged with a faint tremor. "Me.Reborn, I have no home to return to." Tears streamed uncontrollably down my cheeks as I sobbed quietly in anguish. "Fear not, princess, you still have me.Reborn. Me.Reborn will protect you with her life." Her voice was resolute yet choked with emotion. What was meant as a vow of loyalty unwittingly became prophetic. We hadn't gone far from the palace when urgent hoofbeats began pursuing us from behind. Me.Reborn frantically grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the dense forest. "Princess, don't let go of my hand." "Me.Reborn, I'll hold your hand tight." My heart was pounding in my throat. Heaven showed no mercy. Me.Reborn and I still failed to escape. A man of noble bearing, dressed in black robes, blocked our path on horseback. Me.Reborn swiftly shielded me behind her, retreating step by step before turning around abruptly, her hand gripping mine tightly. I stared at the group of people blocking our path ahead, my gaze freezing as my heart sank into an icy abyss. "Fifth princess, be sensible and come back with us." A man's cold voice came from behind. I turned around, overwhelmed by intense hatred rising in my chest. Subconsciously, I clenched my hands hanging at my sides so tightly that my fingertips turned white. I stared fixedly at him, enunciating each word clearly. Absolutely impossible. The man's gaze was so cold it seemed not to regard a living being as he parted his crimson lips. "Spare the fifth princess." As his words fell, 10 arrows shot forth from behind. My limbs turned to ice, yet I still moved swiftly to shield me.Reborn. She swiftly released my hand and pushed me away with force. I fell to the ground, staring in disbelief at the scene before me. Me.Reborn's body was riddled with arrows. Her gaze, filled with reluctance and unwillingness, remained fixed on me as blood trickled from her mouth. Her lips parted slightly. "Princess, survive." "Princess, me.Reborn," I scrambled over frantically, my vision blurring with tears as I saw her wounds. My heart ached unbearably, my breath growing rapid and heavy. Cradling her sideways in my arms, I clutched her hand tightly. "I'm sorry." Sob, "I'm sorry me.Reborn, I'm sorry." I was so consumed by guilt and agony that I nearly fainted. Yet a single sentence from that man filled my heart with hatred. "Do not let the princess's disobedience bring death to more innocent people." He looked down at me with disdain, his words disguised as well-meaning advice but in truth a blatant threat. I knew if not for him, my me.Reborn wouldn't have died. Nor would my crown prince brother, my imperial father and mother, none of them would have died. I suddenly raised my head, fixing him with piercing eyes that blazed with ferocity, brimming with overwhelming fury and hatred. "I curse you, may you toss and turn without peace." May your desires remain unfulfilled, and may you meet no good end." His brows furrowed slightly, a trace of disdain flashing through his eyes as if mocking me. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in an unfamiliar place. Lying on a bed, awake. "Now that you're conscious, accompany this prince to the palace." A voice with a cold edge came from nearby. I stood up and looked in the direction of the sound. The man had a tall, straight nose and tightly pressed lips that accentuated his determination and stubbornness. His sharply defined facial features gave him a rugged, handsome appearance, exuding a sculpted intensity. It was him, suppressing the restlessness in my heart. I deliberately let a flicker of admiration show in my eyes and feigned innocence as I looked at him. "Who are you?" He tugged lightly at the corner of his mouth, his probing gaze sweeping over me. After a moment, he ordered someone to summon the imperial physician. The physician arrived in haste and performed the traditional four-step diagnosis: observation, listening, questioning, and pulse-taking, before concluding, "Struck by shock, afflicted with soul separation disorder." The man gave a cold laugh. "This prince cares not whether you've truly forgotten. But remember well, the defeated shall never rise again." His mocking words and condescending stare pierced my heart like thorns, one stab after another. Before I could speak, he had already strode out, leaving behind a maidservant to explain things to me. "I am Li Xiangyue, the fifth princess sent by the Li dynasty for political marriage. At 17 years old, I will soon enter the palace to meet His Majesty." That man was Wei Zhiheng, the renowned and powerful regent of the Great Qi dynasty, second only to the emperor, standing above 10,000 others. In reality, the young emperor is only 15, and the nation's lifeline as well as crucial decisions all lie firmly in Wei Zhiheng's hands. I lowered my gaze to conceal the hatred in my eyes, silently listening to Huayan's words. "What a fine princess of peace you've made me, destroying my kingdom only to demand I serve the emperor of our enemy." Hua Yang's words dripped with implications. My homeland now stood feeble and impoverished, beset by troubles within and threats without. I knew too well that of my imperial father's lineage, I alone likely remained, the rest cruelly slaughtered by Daqi's hand. "Wei Zhiheng, whatever the cost may be, I swear to make you choke on your own poison and live a fate worse than death." Wei Zhiheng took me into the palace to meet the young emperor. The young emperor's bright yellow robe was embroidered with a soaring dragon over stormy seas, beneath the surging golden waves at the hem. His sleeves billowed high in the wind, his long, arched eyebrows lifted slightly, and his dark, jade-like pupils shimmered with gentle radiance. Before I could bow in greeting, the young emperor hurried down from his seat, his expression tinged with fear. "Uncle, you've returned," he said. Wei Zhiheng's face remained cold, though a trace of warmth lingered in his eyes. "This is Princess Li Chao of the 5th rank. Your Majesty may consider whether to confer upon her the title of imperial consort." The young emperor immediately sized me up from head to toe, concealing the calculations in my heart. I smiled faintly. A fleeting shadow passed through his eyes as he looked at me, then his gaze turned ingratiating when shifting to Wei Zhiheng. "Uncle, perhaps you should take him back instead." Wei Zhiheng gave a slight nod and had someone escort me to wait outside the palace. Just as I was about to board the carriage, a blinding light flashed across my eyes from afar. Instinctively closing them, I heard 3 short and 1 long magpie calls by my ear. This is how my homeland communicates. Suppressing my excitement, I calmly boarded the carriage. Before long, quarreling voices arose outside the carriage, and a sachet slipped in through the curtain. I immediately picked it up and pressed it to my chest. Returning to the royal residence, the regent prince directly assigned me to serve as his personal maidservant. This was humiliation. I had always known Wei Zhiheng looked down on me, just as he despised the people of Li dynasty. Back in my chamber, I opened the sachet to find a note. A poisoned needle and a small packet of venom. The note stated their intent to continue aiding me to avenge our nation's downfall, settle personal grudges, and restore our kingdom. They had located my shadow guard and would have him protect me from the darkness, to avoid leaving any traces. I immediately ate the note after reading it. "Miss, His Highness is calling for you." Huayan's voice came from outside. I responded promptly, coming, looking at the sachet in my hand. I still tucked it into the front of my robe, heading to the study. Wei Zhihang wasn't there. Scattered across the desk were memorials and confidential letters. Subconsciously, I took a step forward, but a surge of unease rooted my feet to the spot. I retreated a step and turned around. Wei Zhihang stood with a frosty expression, pointing a long sword at me. My eyes widened abruptly as I collapsed weakly to the floor. "Spare me, Your Highness." I was certain that if I had touched those things earlier, he would have silently shot an arrow through my back. He calmly sheathed his sword. "Rise." Hearing this, I quickly stood up. "What matter does Your Highness summon me for? Tomorrow's palace banquet you shall accompany this prince to attend." I lowered my head. "As you command." "Wei Zhihang wants me, a princess of a fallen kingdom, to attend the banquet as his maidservant. He truly spares no effort in humiliating me." The palace banquet was Daqi's celebration of victory in this battle. I wanted this matter to become a thorn in Wei Zhihang's heart, one that could never be plucked out. Amid the crowd, some grew discontent with the feasting and courtesans' performances, beginning to shout provocations at me. "Rumor has it Princess Li Chao possesses celestial beauty, why not grace us with a dance?" "What kind of princess? Now she's just the regent king's maid. Ha 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 ha." Wei Zhihang drank his wine carelessly. My hands, crossed over my abdomen, clenched involuntarily. A cold laugh rose in my heart as I spoke just loud enough for those men and the young emperor to hear. These esteemed lords must have truly remarkable achievements to dare openly bypass the regent king and order people around. Could it be that one day they'll grow so proud of their own accomplishments they'll think themselves above all? Leaving my words half-spoken, I cast an almost imperceptible glance at the young emperor. After a long pause, he finally reacted, indeed flying into a rage. "How dare you? I celebrate your merits, yet you've grown so arrogant as to overstep your bounds." Those men immediately knelt down begging for mercy. After a considerable silence, Wei Zhihang set down his wine cup and spoke unhurriedly. "Your Majesty, these ministers have returned victorious from battle, having endured hardships and rendered outstanding service. This subject bears no grudge. Today should be a day of celebration." The young emperor resentfully and helplessly signaled for them to rise. Those men immediately cast grateful glances at Wei Zhihang before returning to their seats. I caught a fleeting glimpse of jealousy and hatred in the young emperor's eyes, secretly laughing to myself. "Wei Zhihang, just wait for the wolf cub you've nurtured with such care to turn around and bite you." After returning to the residence, Wei Zhihang confronted me with belated reckoning. "Who gave you permission to speak at the banquet?" I stared straight at him, my tone carrying a hint of arrogance. "Even if I'm your maid now, I'm still a princess of the Li dynasty. They're not worthy of mocking me." He sneered coldly. "Remember your place, you're just a maid, any one of them could take your life." "Don't think I don't know your little schemes." I smiled faintly. "What schemes might those be, Your Highness? Care to enlighten me?" His gaze held a trace of inquiry. Smiling yet not quite smiling. "Taking your life would be as easy as turning my hand for this prince." I knew he wasn't killing me now only because he wanted to use me to make those loyal talents of Li dynasty submit to Daqi. Not to mention I now suffered from soul separation syndrome. Harboring no such deep hatred toward him, I was a highly useful chess piece, costing him not a single soldier or arrow. My eyes held a flicker of affection for him as I smiled faintly. "Your Highness, my feelings are plain to see. Sooner or later, you'll know. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to believe." He sneered, gave me a meaningful glance, and strode away. While the entire manor was busy preparing Wei Zhihang's birthday gifts, I shook off his spies and formally met with the former ministers of Li dynasty. Liu Changhai couldn't contain his joy upon seeing me. "Princess, it's really you." I nodded slightly. "To make it brief, our operation must be flawless. Tomorrow is Wei Zhihang's birthday celebration, and the young emperor will also attend. I'll stage a self-inflicted injury scheme to dispel Wei Zhihang's suspicions." Liu Changhai replied, "Understood, Your Highness. You may rest assured." I stared intently into his eyes and emphasized, "The assassin must be highly skilled in martial arts. Don't sacrifice lives for this single operation." On the day of the birthday banquet, nearly all court officials came to celebrate with him. the young emperor emerged from the palace as well, making the occasion exceptionally lively with singing, dancing, and great festivity. I followed silently beside Wei Zhiheng, watching him maneuver effortlessly between social circles and receive flattery from all sides. When the banquet reached its midpoint, Wei Zhiheng ordered the main course to be served. Heightening the festive atmosphere, among the serving procession, a maid's sleeve flashed with reflected light. She threw down her tray and charged fiercely toward Wei Zhiheng. "Die, you treacherous dog, she wasn't one of my people. Protect His Majesty." The banquet hall erupted into chaos. Amidst the turmoil, I noticed only the person seated at the head table remained composed, wearing a faint, enigmatic smile. The maidservants struck with deadly precision while guards struggled to hold them off. Meanwhile, my own people had infiltrated the crowd. One seized the moment to ambush Wei Zhiheng when his guard was down. "Your Highness, be careful," I cried out in feigned alarm, swiftly stepping forward to shield him from the blade. The man immediately retreated into the chaos after succeeding. Slipping away unnoticed, I collapsed straight to the ground. While Wei Zhiheng stared thoughtfully at the knife wound on my left shoulder blade, his gaze shifted to the head seat before he finally spoke. "Leave none alive." Upon receiving the order, the guards acted with ruthless efficiency. What had been a grand banquet swiftly turned into a slaughterhouse. A flicker of fear passed through the young emperor's eyes. "Uncle, since this matter is resolved, we shall take our leave." After a long pause, Wei Zhiheng said, "Your Majesty, one must eat rice grain by grain to avoid choking." The young emperor smiled faintly. "We shall heed Uncle's teachings." Wei Zhiheng summoned physicians to treat my injuries, and after dismissing everyone, he asked me, "Save this prince." Conditioned reflex, I grimaced in pain but still forced a smile. He sneered, "Reason. Don't tell me it's because you've taken a fancy to this prince." I sighed, somewhat hurt. "Your Highness, it's you who refuses to believe. This prince reduced a princess to a maidservant, yet instead of bearing resentment, you harbor affection for me. How intriguing." The probing look in his eyes was unmistakable as his lips curled slightly. Hearing this, I knew he truly believed my memory loss was genuine. I stared straight at him and flashed a radiant smile. "I admire strength." After that day, the gazes fixed on my back diminished somewhat, though they never fully disappeared. He occasionally called me over for meals, in my view. This was an opportunity one could seize. I sent assassins to procure some sleeping draughts for me, which I secretly slipped into Wei Zhiheng's meal. This wasn't poison, it wouldn't be detected by silver needles. The sunlight that day was just right, making drowsiness seem perfectly natural. After he lay down and fell asleep, I took out a needle and applied it to an inconspicuous acupoint, whispering softly by his ear, "The Emperor means you harm. One day the Emperor will take your life." I withdrew the needle and tiptoed out. I never doubted my acupuncture skills. We all knew it was the young Emperor behind the incident at last year's birthday banquet. An emperor who doesn't desire real power isn't a qualified ruler. These days, whenever Wei Zhiheng felt cold, I'd add his clothes. When he thirsted, I'd bring water. When he wrote, I'd grind ink for him. In short, I rushed to do everything I could. He didn't say anything, and those beneath him didn't dare to do anything to me. The night was deep, and I forced myself to stay awake to hold the lamp for him. Stifling yawn after yawn, without lifting his head, he said coldly, "If you're tired, go back. No need to truly think of yourself as a maid." "All right." I decisively put it down and briskly turned to leave. "Ahem." He cleared his throat twice. I turned back to look at him. He raised his eyes to meet mine, his gaze dark and unfathomable, carrying emotions I couldn't quite decipher. "Your Highness, I'll take my leave now." He gave a faint hum and lowered his head to read. On the day of the autumn hunt, Wei Zhiheng took me along. I watched enviously as they galloped on horseback. "Want to ride?" Wei Zhiheng suddenly spoke up. "The thought of horseback riding makes me somewhat apprehensive about returning home. The Li dynasty has vast grasslands, and our people grew up on horseback." I nodded. "I'd like to. Come, this king will take you to a place where you can ride." He rose and strode ahead. "All right." I beamed with a radiant smile. Each leading a horse, we walked to an open grassland, with dense woods not far away. Gripping the reins, I swung myself onto the saddle and, no longer paying attention to Wei Zhiheng, rode to my heart's content. I could feel the gentle breeze caressing my face, the howling wind whispering past my ears, lifting my gaze to the blue sky. The warm sunlight bathed my body. Everything was so perfect, yet my heart felt hollow as if wind could whistle through it. I still vividly remember my first time riding a horse. Father Emperor specially found me a gentle young colt to ride. My elder imperial brother watched jealously nearby. His first mount had been a fuller-grown stallion, wild and untamed, that threw him off repeatedly until he'd eaten his fair share of dirt. The Empress Dowager smiled beside me. Though my imperial brother spoke harshly, he carefully shielded me by his side, fearing I might fall if I lost focus for even a moment. But now, everything is gone. I had ridden quite far when I slowed my pace, raising my eyes to gaze ambiguously at Wei Zhiheng in the distance. It was him, it was Emperor Da Qi. They were the ones who harmed me, who brought suffering to the people of Li Dynasty. There were only the two of us here, thinking I was calling to him. He slowly rode his horse toward me. In the woods, I saw leaves rustling violently as a group of masked men suddenly emerged and attacked Wei Zhiheng. He was kicked off his horse, rolled several times on the ground before steadying himself, then fought the masked men barehanded. The corners of my lips curled slightly, though I still pretended to be frightened and cried out, "Your Highness." He was perhaps distracted by my shout when someone slashed him across the shoulder blades. I nearly failed to control my expression. Feigning concern, I quickly urged my horse forward. "Your Highness, grab my hand." Wei Zhiheng's face was somewhat pale. His deep gaze fixed on me as flickers of shadow passed through his eyes. He gripped my hand tightly, and I hauled him onto the horse before galloping away. Our pursuers close behind, unfamiliar with the terrain. My horse soon stumbled, sending both of us tumbling down a steep slope. I immediately turned around and embraced Wei Zhiheng. Outwardly, it seemed like I was protecting him, but in reality, I pressed my head tightly against his chest, doing my best to shield myself from injury. When we finally stopped, Wei Zhiheng's face bore several wounds, and the knife injury on his right shoulder had torn open, looking even more severe as blood continued to flow. Panicked, I scrambled to my feet and began frantically checking him over. Your Highness, are you all right?" He frowned and groaned through gritted teeth. "Stop that." I immediately stopped what I was doing and looked at him anxiously. He used his left hand to grab a corner of his garment, bit it with his teeth, tore off a long strip of cloth, and handed it to me. "Bandage your king." I took it and tightly wrapped the strip around his right shoulder. He seemed to frown slightly in pain, but since he didn't mention it, I pretended not to notice. In places he couldn't see, a glint of schadenfreude flashed through my eyes. "Hope it hurts like hell." After bandaging him, he said, "Help this prince up. We need to find somewhere to hide. Those people weren't from Li Dynasty, clearly. If we couldn't evade them, I'd be silenced too." I quickly glanced at him, silently cursing in my heart. Seems he's made quite a few enemies himself, dragging me into this mess. "Fine." I struggled to lift my hand, frowning slightly. My arm was injured too, though not as badly as his. He placed his hand on my shoulder as I panted heavily, helping him walk to sit by the small stream in the woods. Thirsty, I crouched by the bank, scooping water with my hands and gulping it down greedily. Only after quenching my thirst did I turn to the man tending his wounds behind me and ask, "Your Highness, are you thirsty?" His brow arched slightly as he lowered his gaze to my still dripping hands, his eyes gradually darkening. After a long pause, instead of answering, he motioned for me to come closer and unwrap the bandages from his wounds. "Then go drink yourself if you're thirsty, Your Highness." I took the blood-stained cloth to the stream to wash it, wringing the water out tightly. "This prince wants water," he said. I had my back turned to him, the disgust in my eyes something I couldn't be bothered to hide from him. But the next second, I raised a smile and said, "All right, wait a moment." I plucked a leaf to scoop water for him, bringing it to his lips. The man drank and drank. I made 4 trips back and forth, my inner thoughts. "Drink, drink, drink, hope you choke on it." My surface, "I'm just a happy and hard-working little bee," he said with slight disdain. "When will you ever let this king drink his fill?" Scoop some water with your hand and bring it here. Fine, I replied with a fake smile. I scooped water with my hand and brought it to his lips, but he just stared straight up at me, motionless. I curled the corner of my mouth. What's this dead man staring at me for instead of drinking water, Your Highness? The water is about to run out. With only a little water left in my hand, as I was about to scoop more, he lowered his gaze, his long lashes veiling the emotions in his eyes, parted his lips, and sucked the water from my palm. The moment his lips touched my palm, I couldn't help but feel sickened. I quickly turned and walked away, unable to resist scrubbing my hands hastily by the stream before scooping water again to bring to him, this time, without waiting for him to finish drinking. I opened my hands and stood up to prepare another scoop. The man behind me spoke in a low voice. No need. I immediately sat obediently by his side. Your Highness, when are we going back? He leaned against my shoulder uncomfortably, closing his eyes. Don't worry, Huyun will bring people to find us. Fox Cloud was his bodyguard. I felt somewhat awkward and tried to move away from him, but he said sternly, don't move, this prince is feeling drowsy. Let me rest my head on your shoulder for a while. My face hovered above his as I pursed my lips. This Prince Tilda is feeling sleepy Tilda. I instinctively rolled my eyes. His voice sounded weak. Li Xiangyue, with so many assassins earlier, why didn't you run away yourself? This damn man. Still testing me at a time like this, I cooed back sweetly. But if I didn't save you, wouldn't you die, Your Highness? Is that so? He chuckled softly, my lord. You don't actually think you can kill someone armed with a blade using just your bare hands, do you? I teased. My lord, one must know one's limitations. He gave a light scoff. You've grown quite bold now. I fell silent. After a long pause, he asked again, what do you want when we return? Missing your country destroyed and family lost, he asked himself and answered, won't speak, then I'll arrange it. This dead man really knows how to disgust me, anything but this, taking me as concubine. On the very first day we returned from the autumn hunt, he announced it throughout the entire household, making sure everyone knew that I, a dignified princess, had been reduced to being someone's concubine. I shouldn't have saved him, he deserved to die without a burial place. Then he came to my chamber, his eyes carrying a trace of tenderness, perhaps even he himself wasn't aware of it. It made me sick to my stomach. The dead man even took my hand, curling his lips arrogantly as if I should be honored to be his concubine. This prince believes you this time. I grant you the title of noble concubine to the regent prince, are you pleased? I was seething with hatred inside, truly wishing I could twist his head off and kick it like a ball. I sneered sarcastically, oh, how utterly delighted Your Highness makes me Tilda. His smile vanished, his face darkening as he released my hand. Li Xiangyue, you will speak properly to this prince. I rolled my eyes at him and went out for a stroll. When I returned and finished eating, he seemed to have concocted some fantasy in his mind and came over to lecture me again. Xiangyue, this prince knows you admire me, and you've saved me before. I grant you the privilege to act spoiled, but you must not overstep your bounds. The position of my principal wife will absolutely never be yours. I gave him a cool glance and said, Your Highness, I won't see you out. He gazed at me quietly, his eyes dark and profound like ink. I met his gaze unflinchingly. Your Highness, I may consent to be a servant, but I will never consent to be a concubine. Even if reduced to servitude, I remain an independent soul, though they may control my body and scorn my status. But to become a concubine, whether through true affection or false pretenses, would be nothing less than an insult to my dignity, an attempt to degrade my very spirit. I am a princess of the Li dynasty, and I absolutely cannot allow myself to be humiliated to such an extent. At this moment, his face darkened completely, his expression tense, his eyes as cold as ice. You've really outdone yourself, Li Xiangyue. After that unpleasant parting, we hadn't seen each other for half a month. Meanwhile, I'd been secretly exchanging messages with Liu Changhai through loyalists late at night. Go back and tell Liu Changhai to find someone trustworthy from our own ranks to enter court service, someone who can target Wei Zhiheng and drive a wedge between the young emperor and him. Yes. No sooner had the dead soldier leaped out the window than my door was flung open, prompting me to swiftly close the window. Moonlight streamed in, illuminating the figure who entered, Wei Zhiheng. Reeking of alcohol, staggered toward my bed and collapsed onto it with a thud, clutching my pillow while murmuring incoherently, tiptoeing closer. I finally made out what he was saying. He said with distress, "Li Xiangyue, how could this prince possibly like you? You're both affected and aggressive, not to mention spoiled by favor. How could this prince like you? But Hu Yun says I've fallen for you. Perhaps it was when you stayed by my side day and night. Or perhaps it was how you're fierce with others but docile with me. But if this prince had to guess, it was probably during last autumn's hunt when you rushed to save me without hesitation, your gaze resolute, your face worried, yet showing no fear." His voice grew soft, carrying a trace of pleading by the end. "You've forgotten what this prince did before. I'm so rigid, yet you say your heart belongs to me. Li Xiangyue, just stay by my side like this forever. This prince won't make you a concubine anymore. No one will make you a concubine." I was speechless. Disgusting, truly disgusting. With a cold expression, I turned and went to lie down on the nearby chaise lounge. When dawn came, I found myself waking up in bed. I was speechless. Today the servants announced that Wei Zhiheng would be coming for dinner. Looking at the lavish spread of dishes covering the table, I dismissed all of them. I took out the powdered martial arts inhibitor wrapped in candy paper from my sleeve and mixed it into the food. As the name suggests, the martial arts inhibitor gradually drains one's internal energy. "Your Highness, the young lady is inside." The servant's voice and Wei Zhiheng's footsteps grew closer. I swallowed hard and quickly ate the portion that wasn't fully mixed yet. I have no internal energy, so this medicine is harmless to me. When Wei Zhiheng entered, I was sitting on a stool, my mouth stuffed full as I chewed. The servant looked at me in shock. "Your Highness." This, probably wanting to say I had no manners. Not waiting for Wei Zhiheng, he waved his hand, looking at me with smiling eyes. "It's nothing. You may go." "Yes." After the servant left, he sat beside me and said with a faint smile, "Have you been waiting long? You don't need to wait for me next time. Just like today is fine." I swallowed hard and nodded. All right. He ate quite a lot, which secretly pleased me. Having stayed at the regent's palace for so long, this time I could finally go out openly. On the road, I saw many people from the Li dynasty, all kneeling on the ground begging for survival. Occasionally, some found work, only to be beaten and scolded at the slightest provocation. With a heavy heart, I bought them food. On my way back, I unexpectedly ran into someone I never thought I'd see. The young emperor in casual attire, holding a folding fan, was truly a dashing and handsome youth. There was no necessary connection between us. If I approached rashly, it would only make him suspicious of me. As I passed by the young emperor, I discreetly shook the scented powder from my sleeve. "Wait," he called out. I pretended not to notice and continued walking forward, but he quickly stepped ahead to block my path. Feigning shock, I looked at him. "Your Majesty." When Wei Zhiheng came looking for me, I was drinking merrily with the young emperor, our arms around each other's shoulders, nearly reaching the point of calling each other brothers. His eyes narrowed slightly, his thin lips pressed into a tight line, and an icy aura suddenly radiated from his entire being. Seeing him, I hastily put distance between myself and the young emperor. "Your Highness." I meant no offense to His Majesty. The young emperor chuckled lightly as he rested his hand on my shoulder. Having finally met a kindred spirit, how could I possibly mind? Had I known Xiangyue shared such similar interests with me, I would never have let my uncle take you back. I stole a glance at Wei Zhiheng. His eyes were dark and profound, his expression tense as he stared at me, his voice icy. "It seems the Grand Tutor hasn't assigned His Majesty enough homework, allowing him to sneak out of the palace." His cold gaze swept over me before settling on the trembling eunuch beside us. "Escort His Majesty back to the palace." The fledgling emperor didn't put up much resistance, only leaving me with these words as he departed. "Xiangyue, next time I sneak out, I'll come find you to play." I looked at the man radiating low pressure before me and forced a smile. "Your Highness, shall we return as well?" He sneered coldly. "What's the matter? You can drink with him, but not with this prince." I was speechless. I stood up and walked to his side. "Your Highness, drinking harms the body. Let's go." As we passed each other, He grabbed my wrist. Li Xiangyue, just what exactly do you want? I turned my head to meet his gaze, my eyes filled with confusion. What does your highness mean by this? Ever since I mentioned taking you as my concubine last time, you've been angry with me, even after I withdrew the proposal. You've been avoiding me. What exactly do you want from me? His eyes were dark and unfathomable, chillingly cold. I held his gaze for a long moment before suddenly letting out a soft laugh. What are you talking about, Your Highness? I don't quite understand. I've never avoided seeing you. He stared at me intently, an unnamed emotion surging in his eyes like molten lava. Tightening his grip on my wrist, he abruptly lowered his head toward my lips. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively turned my head down. His warm lips brushed against the tip of my ear. This damn man, I could feel my ears burning. He chuckled softly, gripping my hand and slowly interlacing our fingers. His dominance impossible to ignore. Let's go. He took the lead and stepped forward, compelled to follow behind him. I couldn't help but shoot him a disgusted glance, perhaps sensing some thawing in our relationship. He frequently summoned me to dine with him or came to eat at my quarters. These past few days, Wei Zhiheng had been tied up with court affairs and rarely came to see me. The young emperor brought wine to my courtyard, determined to drink until we were thoroughly intoxicated. With drunken, bleary eyes, the young emperor said, "Xiangyue, go fetch some snacks from the small kitchen." Yes, I nodded slightly and walked to the corner, deliberately hiding in the shadows. From my concealed spot, I watched as the emperor slipped something into my drink. I scoffed quietly before heading to the small kitchen to retrieve some pastries. The young emperor may have had 800 schemes running through his mind, but few of them held any real substance. He wants to use me against Wei Zhiheng. Why shouldn't I play along? Pretending ignorance, I naively drank the wine he handed me. He rose and flicked his sleeves. "Uncle should be returning soon. We shall take our leave. Farewell, Your Majesty." I gave my head a slight shake, feeling somewhat dizzy, after the young emperor left. I entered the room and applied acupuncture needles to myself to keep my mind clear, but the poison still lingered. After hiding these tools, I lay down on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up once during that time. Wei Zhiheng was sitting by my bed, looking at me with pleasant surprise, but before he could speak, the knife in my hand had already pierced his chest. His pupils contracted sharply as he stared at me in disbelief. I struggled to release the knife, feigning unbearable pain as I forced tears to well up in my eyes and looked at him. "Your Highness, I didn't mean to." He pulled out the knife, staining his azure robe with blood, then embraced me, his voice gentle. "Don't be afraid, I'm fine." Before his words faded, I sank back into delirium. The knife had been placed in my hand by the young emperor while Wei Zhiheng was away. His poison could trigger violent reactions in people. The young emperor was brainlessly arrogant yet deeply suspicious, while Wei Zhiheng was cold-blooded and ruthless, yet both harbored warlike tendencies, bringing devastation to neighboring nations and leaving me homeless. So as long as I can exact revenge, I'm willing to pay any price. What's there to fear about being poisoned halfway? Ever since my poison was cured, I've noticed Wei Zhiheng's attitude toward me has improved by more than just a little. Every time he looks at me, his gaze is complex, tinged with guilt, remorse, and something like affection. We all knew perfectly well who had poisoned me. Wei Zhiheng was beginning to make his move against the young emperor. Liu Changhai sent word that through our manipulations, the young emperor had also started gradually pressuring Wei Zhiheng and reclaiming power. During these days, I've come to understand the relationship between Wei Zhiheng and the young emperor. Wei Zhiheng's sister was the late imperial consort, making him the young emperor's maternal uncle at that time. The court delayed establishing a crown prince. The late empress had a 16-year-old son who should rightfully have been heir apparent. However, the late imperial consort enjoyed the late emperor's special favor, and he secretly wished to make her son, the present young emperor, then only 7 years old, the crown prince instead. A mother's love makes her strong. The late empress resorted to ruthless means, poisoning the late imperial consort outright, in her dying moments. The late imperial consort sent her final wish to 18-year-old Wei Zhiheng, pleading him to protect her only son. Wei Zhiheng and the late imperial consort were both children of the Wei family's principal wife. The patriarch favored his concubine over his lawful wife, leaving the two siblings to rely on each other for survival. Honoring their past bond, he agreed. At that time, Wei Zhiheng was merely a sixth-rank official. Yet he stood against the faction of the late empress for the young emperor's sake, rising from a minor sixth-rank official to the position of regent prince. Wei Zhiheng's extraordinary courage and strategy speak for themselves. If it was said that he attained his current status solely for the sake of the young emperor, now that the emperor has reached an age where he could gradually assume power, yet Wei still firmly holds the reins of authority, this certainly gives one much to ponder. As for the eldest prince who failed in his bid for the throne, I believe we will soon learn of his whereabouts. An imperial decree arrived at the regent prince's residence, commanding Wei Zhiheng to lead troops into battle, not to quell unrest, but to provoke war. Clad in armor astride a mighty steed, he cut an imposing figure. "I'll be back," he said, my heart heavy. I nonetheless tilted my head upward with a faint smile playing on my lips. "Silent, wait for you. Yet what I truly yearn for is your death upon this battlefield." Receiving no response from me, the light in his eyes dimmed slightly. Time waits for no one. He mounted his horse and led the troops onward. Liu Changhai and I had planted our people during this march. He would secretly communicate with the enemy forces. This battle was doomed to fail, and the one in the palace would grow increasingly suspicious of him. As for me, a destitute and helpless princess of a fallen kingdom forced into servitude in the enemy's land, who would ever suspect me? 2 months later, news of unfavorable military developments arrived from the front lines. The young emperor grew deeply troubled. Half a month later, a battle was won, but Wei Zhiheng had vanished without a trace. The young emperor emerged from the palace and had me bound to be taken inside. He said that now I mattered greatly to Wei Zhiheng, and with me here, Wei would surely not dare to betray the country. I was speechless. A month later, news came from the front lines that Wei Zhiheng had been found. Though severely wounded, our people couldn't get close to his tent camp, so we couldn't tell if it was true or false. With our people's assistance, the emperor reclaimed considerable power and intimidated many. One night, someone slipped into my bedchamber, Song Mingqi, who had been planted in the Darky court and deeply trusted by the young emperor. This was our first meeting. We recognized each other through the Li dynasty sachet he carried, which bore a subtle character Li of my design. His voice was gentle as he said, "Princess, I've come to take you out of the palace. It seems Liu Changhai has found the crown prince." I nodded and changed into the black clothes he brought. Who would have thought a civil official could be so skilled in Qinggong? He carried me over the palace walls. The crown prince's face had already turned sallow, his hands covered with calluses. After failing to seize power, he was sent by Wei Zhiheng to a small village to become a farmer, guarded by sentries. The imperial court underwent multiple purges, leaving him with no remaining influence. We cared little for these matters. Over the past year, Liu Changhai and I had gathered all remaining forces loyal to our motherland. Now we intended to use the crown prince's name to storm the palace. Afterwards, I returned to my homeland and brought the scattered people of the Li dynasty back to their native land. I never had grand ambitions at first. I just wanted to be a carefree fifth princess. After the fall of my kingdom, my only desire was revenge. Now, at this stage, all I wish is for my people to return to their homeland and no longer wander displaced. As for Daqi, because the young emperor and Wei Zhiheng frequently wage wars, the people suffer unbearably. I believe the Li dynasty has many capable individuals who could shoulder this great responsibility. That day marked my becoming a princess of a fallen kingdom. Now, Daqi faces both internal strife and external threats. Wei Zhiheng is busy concluding the war, while the young emperor faces a palace coup. When Wei Zhiheng hastily ended the war and was returning to the capital, news of my abduction reached him. Faced with this ultimate dilemma, he led one detachment toward my location while sending the remaining forces to rescue the capital. The man holding me hostage on the city tower was the enemy general from the recently concluded war. He was also a man of Li dynasty, remaining loyal to his fallen homeland. Wei Zhiheng rode his horse to the base of the tower, his soldiers behind him all armed with broadswords, spears, and shields. Xie Qiling, our war has ended. What kind of man holds hostage a defenseless woman? He roared from below. The enemy general, Xie Qiling, chuckled lightly and said, "It was you who started this war, you who caused rivers of blood to flow. I merely wanted you to taste the bitterness of loss. Why can't you bear it? Wei Zhiheng, what exactly do you want? I'll trade myself for her, will that do?" Xie Qiling, "Of course it will." Wei Zhiheng believed that by exchanging himself for me, he could surely escape, and of course, I knew he had the ability to do so. But after being dosed with my energy-dispersing medicine for so many days, can he really achieve his wish? The city gates swung open. In war, all stratagems are fair, and he immediately led his troops charging inside. Xie Qiling immediately shouted the order, "Loose arrows." The city walls were lined with soldiers. Wei Zhiheng's move was nothing more than sending men to their deaths. "Make it look real. Don't be afraid of hurting me," I whispered softly. "As you command, Princess." Xie Qiling pressed the blade closer to my neck, glaring viciously at Wei Zhiheng, who had entered the city alone. "Wei Zhiheng, I never imagined you'd be so fearless. Do you truly not care if I kill her?" A sharp pain pierced my neck. It must have drawn blood. I winced slightly. Beneath his sleeves, Wei Zhiheng's fists clenched tightly, his bloodshot eyes burning crimson like a vengeful spirit. Suppressing his fury, he looked up at us and said, "Yes, it's my fault, now that I'm here. Do with me as you will, just let her go." Xie Qiling commanded, "Now, drop the sword in your hand. Come up unarmed, you'll be searched first." He swiftly discarded his long sword. Our men below the city wall immediately stepped forward to search him, then nodded to us before shoving him forward to ascend. "Be careful, Princess," Xie Qiling murmured in a low voice. He released his grip, allowing me to descend. Wei Zhiheng raised his eyebrows, his approaching footsteps noticeably lighter. I tightened my grip on the small knife hidden in my sleeve and walked toward him slowly. As we passed each other, I heard him say, 5 miles east after leaving the city, someone will be waiting for you." Our gazes crossed, his looking down, mine looking up, taking advantage of his moment of relaxation. I swiftly turned and plunged the poisoned knife deep into his back. He turned his head abruptly, pupils dilating in shock. His trembling lashes framing dark eyes filled with unwillingness as he stubbornly reached out to grab me. I instinctively stepped back several paces, a flash of ferocity crossing my eyes. Staggering a few steps, he smiled bitterly at the corners of his mouth. "Why?" My people immediately rushed to my side, forming a protective circle around me. Seeing this, his eyes darkened with an unreadable expression, yet he stubbornly demanded an answer. "You've always remembered, haven't you? Don't you harbor even a shred of affection for me?" My eyes burned with unshed tears as hatred threatened to erupt from my chest. Snatching Xie Qiling's long sword, I viciously plunged it into his heart. Blood suddenly gushed from his mouth as he collapsed to the ground. Seeing the torrent of murderous intent in my eyes, he let out a weak, self-mocking laugh. "Never thought I'd die for something as trivial as love. Love, don't make me sick." I looked at him with disgust, my voice icy. My emotions grew increasingly agitated until I was nearly shouting. "You slaughtered my father and mother, destroyed my kingdom, left my people homeless and wandering. You belittled me, humiliated me, tortured me. How dare you speak to me of love?" I couldn't bear to hear another word. Drawing my sword, I thrust it through him with all my strength. After Wei Zhiheng breathed his last, I wept with heartrending sobs. "Father, mother, imperial brother, Biyun, I have avenged you." After the successful palace coup, the young emperor was imprisoned, while the eldest prince was granted 100 acres of land. That day, Liu Changhai asked me about my plans moving forward. I replied, "I only wish for our nation to prosper, for the people to have homes free from heavy taxes and labor, and for every household to live in harmony and joy." I looked at him and said, "Liu Changhai, I am the last of the Li dynasty's royal line. I lack the great talent needed to govern a nation. You should be emperor instead. I know you are loyal as a subject. If you were sovereign, you would naturally care for the country and its people, prioritizing their welfare. My father often said that if you were to rule, you would surely cherish the people as your own children and devote yourself to good governance. Liu Changhai's eyes reddened as he knelt solemnly before me, saying with grave sincerity, "This subject shall never betray your majesty and her highness's expectations." Dhe changed its dynastic name to Dasheng. Adopting the reign title Ninghe, Liu Changhai presented me with the imperial edict of enfeoffment, granting me the former territory of Li dynasty as my domain. On the eve of the new emperor's enthronement, I rode out of the capital with my death squad, heading toward the lands of Li dynasty. This time, riding the horse, my face was still gently brushed by the breeze. The sound of the wind whistling in my ears, looking up, the blue sky stretched above, the warm sun shining on me, filled with the joy of spring, everything was so perfect. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The day my husband became the top scholar, he declared me his sworn sister. After 6 years of marriage to Xiao Zheshou, he handed me a letter of divorce upon achieving first place in the imperial examinations. Then he opened the ancestral hall to formally recognize me as his sworn sister. Standing before those tattered ancestral tablets, I lowered my gaze in silence, yet he spoke with utter conviction. "It was your elder sister I was betrothed to since childhood. Your father tore us apart back then, but now everything must return to its rightful place. Considering you've taken care of me for 6 years, I'll acknowledge you as my sworn sister. Consider this my compensation." Perhaps even he found these words somewhat absurd, squinting his eyes in feigned ignorance. "You can ask me for anything you want, and I'll do my best to fulfill it. But my wife can only be Jinyu. Her husband just died. I can't bear to make her suffer further as a concubine." Casually, he plucked a peach tree branch and tucked it into my hair. "Dear sister, I present you this peachwood hairpin, hoping you'll soon find a worthy match." I glanced at the jewelry, silks, and satins he had prepared for my elder sister behind him, and smiled. When I was with him, I didn't even dare wear bright-colored clothes. Even eating meat while sitting on piles of gold required carefully crafted excuses. Now I can finally take the money and run without a second thought. I'm foolish. My brain suddenly feels inadequate. I gazed at the poised Xiao Zheshou, my heart turning half cold. No wonder he demanded water 5 times in one breath last night. This morning my waist was still trembling. It was the first time in 6 years of marriage that he had shown me such warmth. I thought he was happy because he had won first place in the imperial examinations. But I was wrong again. My sworn sister is as beautiful as flowers and the moon, and she makes exquisite. She'll have no trouble finding a good husband. For the first time, I found Xiao Zheshou's strikingly handsome face somewhat repulsive. The onlooking granny spoke up for me indignantly. "Before you passed the imperial exams, you said Wanbai was your faithful wife through thick and thin. Now that you've succeeded, instead of sharing any of those gold, silver, jewels, silks and satins with Wanbai, you think you can just fob her off with some worthless wooden trinket and make her your sworn sister. Go ask around the capital what respectable family has a sworn brother who takes his sworn sister's virginity." Xiao Zheshou's expression darkened. "Ignorant woman, you claim she's my lawful wife. Do you have proof? I am a descendant of the Lanling Xiao clan. Were it not for my family's fallen fortunes, I would never have casually become engaged to some obscure Jiang family. My betrothal certificate states clearly the person I'm engaged to is none other than the Jiang family's legitimate daughter, Jiang Jinyu. For these 6 years, Jiang Wanbai was merely staying temporarily in my household." With a flick of his sleeve, the delicate silk hem brushed against my cheek as he declared sternly, "How can there be any talk of marriage? Where is the betrothal letter? Where are the matchmakers? Where are the 6 rights and dowry?" Granny was left speechless, instantly rendered mute by his retort. As for me, I made my decision in that very instant. I carefully folded the divorce letter and thanked him solemnly for his gift. This humble woman knows her lowly station. These years of making a living selling pastries, a merchant's trade being base, make me unworthy of the noble Lanling Xiao family name. It is my honor, Jiang Wanbai, to become young Master Xiao's sworn sister. But since my sworn brother is preparing to marry the legitimate daughter of the Jiang family, it would be improper for me to stay here any longer. I beg your permission to let me leave the Xiao residence and establish my own household." Granny angrily tugged at my sleeve repeatedly. "Are you out of your mind? The hard days are about to be over. He has so many gold ingots. How many icy desserts would you have to sell to earn that much? If you leave now, won't you just go back to living in hardship?" I took a step back and bowed respectfully. "Granny, please say no more. I harbor no romantic feelings for Lord Xiao either. Now that I've acknowledged him as my sworn brother, doing business in the capital will at least give me some security. I really want to tell Grandma that she shouldn't get angry over trivial things at her age. Xiao Zhixiu doesn't want me anymore, but I won't wallow in self-pity. During these 6 years of marriage, I didn't give him all my savings for his imperial examinations. Since childhood, my mother taught me that a woman's two most reliable things in life are the money she earns herself and the children she bears. No matter how sweet-tongued men in this world may be, never trust them with your whole heart. Especially after witnessing my mother's tragic end from waiting her entire life, I would never throw away my life for a man." Xiao Zhixiu was quite pleased with my humble obedience. "Here. You may have these 2 chicken feet as your reward. I have matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." With light steps, he disappeared through the doorway, yet still uneasy, he turned back. "A pair of chicken feet probably won't be enough. I'll bring you some chicken wing tips too. I hope you'll enjoy them, sworn sister. In the future, when I become an official at court, I'll naturally have an official residence to live in. These 2 thatched cottages shall be yours." His broad brows were filled with joy and pride. Before the eyes of all the neighbors, he produced another handwritten deed. "You're just a delicate woman. Running your shaved ice stall every day is already hard enough. I'm not some stingy miser who'd let you move out alone. That would weigh on my conscience. In that case, you may continue living here. From now on, with me in the imperial capital, no one would dare to bully you." After settling these matters, Xiao Zhixiu's figure vanished once more around the street corner. The neighbors dispersed reluctantly, none noticing the wild joy flashing in my eyes. 6 years ago, Jiang Jinyu would rather marry a dissolute nobleman's son as his second wife than become his principal spouse. My father didn't want her to marry into hardship either. Naturally, they thought of me abandoned in the brothel. Since childhood, I'd followed my mother scraping a living in the singing house, after her death from illness. The madam forced me to receive clients daily. The Jiang family originally just wanted me to replace the marriage Jiang Jinyu had rejected. Little did they know, in my eyes, tending to a man's daily needs was far better than selling smiles by the balcony. Drifting without a home, a month ago, when news came that Xiao Zhixiu had passed the imperial exams, Jiang Jinyue's husband died, I secretly thought this was far too coincidental. I hastily took the divorce papers and the banknotes hidden in the floor cracks to the magistrate's office. "In 3 days, you may come to collect your new household registration." The clerk took my money, his expression becoming noticeably more amiable than before, as I stepped out of the government office. Servants from the Jiang family blocked my path. "The second young miss has been carrying on shamelessly with Xiao Zhixiu for 6 years, bringing disgrace upon the Jiang family. The master specifically sent us to bring you back, returning to the Jiang family." My father wore a stern expression. "Ungrateful daughter, you've tarnished the entire reputation of the Jiang family. Where have you been these 6 years? We searched everywhere for you. If it weren't for Zhixiu taking you in as his sworn sister, you'd have surely ended up in a brothel by now." I was furious. "What are you trying to do now? 6 years ago, it was you who made me marry Xiao Zhixiu. Without complaint, I endured 6 years of hardship with him. Now he's given me divorce papers and recognized me as his sworn sister. What kind of farce are you pulling this time?" Jiang Jinyu wore an expression of having suffered immense grievances. "Father, please don't scold younger sister anymore. It's my misfortune, perhaps it's just my fate to become someone's second wife. As long as brother Xiao treats me well hereafter, even if I'm labeled as his 10th consecutive bride, I'll accept it." My eyes widened in that instant. I understood. Xiao Zhixiu didn't want society branding him as a man who abandoned his first wife. Jiang Jinyu had no desire to leave herself vulnerable to gossip about specializing in becoming men's second wives. The two hit it off immediately, and my father was more than happy to step forward and play matchmaker for them. Xiao Zhixiu dared not look at me again. At Jiang Xian's command, "Someone, take this unfilial daughter to the ancestral hall and keep her locked up until she realizes her mistakes. I must also investigate thoroughly whether she truly carries the bloodline of our Jiang family. I understand now. My father sees that I've lost my usefulness and wants to eliminate his disgracefully born daughter while he's at it, beat her severely, force her to confess how many lovers her mother actually had back then. She doesn't look like me at all. Maybe she's not even my daughter." A dozen heavy strikes landed solidly on me. The pain made me break out in sweat. Leaving me completely speechless, I glared fiercely at that shameless old man Jiang Xian. "Jiang Xian, you're not worthy of my mother's love. My mother loved you deeply. She made ice cream cakes to support your studies until you became the top scholar, yet you abandoned her. You married the daughter of a high-ranking official in the capital, yet sent my mother to a brothel. You'll get your retribution sooner or later." Hearing these words, Jiang Xian grew even more furious. Xiao Zhixiu also clenched his fists, his profound gaze fixed on me as if some hidden thought had been stirred. "Foster sister, how could you speak so disrespectfully to Father Jiang? Have you forgotten all the years I spent painstakingly teaching you literature and manners?" He wore an expression of utter heartbreak. "Even if you aren't of Jiang blood, you'll always be my foster sister. Why must you trouble Lord Jiang with your affairs? Wanbai still has old injuries on her ankles, be gentle with her." His words sounded considerate, but his eyelids kept twitching. The executioner's rod struck my ankle, and instantly I was rendered speechless. The heart-wrenching, bone-snapping pain crushed me until I could barely breathe. My eyes brimmed with tears of grievance. "Xiao Zhixiu, 5 years ago, when you caught a chill and ran a high fever that wouldn't break, if I hadn't gone up the mountain to gather herbs, you'd have been dead long ago. The injury on my ankle is entirely thanks to you. You actually told them to specifically target my most painful spot." I thought his willingness to grant me the status of a sworn sister was a sign that his conscience wasn't completely dead, but I was utterly mistaken. Even when I neither cried nor made a scene, they still refused to let me go. Xiao Zhixiu stood in the shadows, his face twisted with inner conflict. "Father-in-law, why not just let her shave her head and become a nun?" Jiang Jinyu stomped on my arm, twisting her foot several times for good measure. "Xiao Lang, you're not still hung up on her, are you? It's not like I have to marry you anyway." With that, she tossed her head like a proud swan, exuding endless charm in a single glance. Xiao Zhixiu immediately rushed to appease her. "Jinyu, rest assured, I've never had the slightest improper thought about her. If you dislike it, I'll have her tonsued immediately." With that, he went to fetch the scissors himself. A wind rose in the courtyard, and the wind chimes beneath the eaves sounded like death summons. The gleaming silver scissors hovered between my brows. I didn't even have the strength left for one last struggle. As long as I live, I will never forget today's humiliation. Xiao Zhixiu, Jiang Jinyu, Jiang Xian, and everyone else in this household, go to hell. Staring at the scattered black strands of hair on the floor, I found myself unable to even feel anger. Finally, Jiang Xian cleared his throat. "It's best not to have any deaths occur at home. You're just starting your official career. If the censors catch wind of this, it could ruin your future prospects. Since she's practically useless now, just throw her into a nunnery." 2 servants stepped forward and dragged me away. Behind her came Jiang Jinyue's coquettish rebuke. "Wait, someone so lowly, what if her hands and feet aren't clean? She might steal Master Xiao's family treasures. We can't let her walk away with gold and silver so easily." Xiao Zhixiu looked slightly embarrassed. "What does Jinyu think?" "Naturally, have the servants search her before sending her out of the manor." She cast a sidelong glance at the coachman in the distance. "You there?" The greedy-looking groom lunged forward, mercilessly tearing open my outer robe and undergarments. His rough hands searched every inch of my body. I was utterly enraged. I opened my mouth to curse, but it was stuffed with a filthy rag. I wanted to shake off those grimy hands, but the groom wouldn't even spare my undergarments. He leered. There are still places beneath these small clothes I haven't searched. Why doesn't the young mistress arrange a secluded spot for me to conduct a thorough inspection? Xiao Zishou's face turned deathly pale. Absolutely not. Xiao Lang, why are you speaking up for her? From now on, you'll have me by your side. What happens to Jiang Wanbai has nothing to do with you anymore. Everyone in the Jiang household was squinting at me. In their eyes, it's as if I'm not a person at all, but merely an object they can toy with and humiliate at will. I could no longer contain my overwhelming emotions. Xiao Zishou, I have absolutely nothing left on me. All the family's money is in your hands. Please, spare me some dignity. He hesitated, lips parting as if to speak, yet no words came forth. The coachman seized the moment to tear off my undergarments, scattering a few chicken bones that drew uproarious laughter from the crowd. Forget it, take advantage of the gathering dusk and send her away at once. Jiang Jinyu sighed softly. I'm not really that kind of harsh person, I just don't want brother Xiao to suffer any losses. I was like a piece of tattered cloth, discarded in the wilderness. The coachman had been lusting after me the whole journey and finally seized his chance to pounce. Pretty little thing, though you're just leftovers from the top scholar's playthings, you've still got such delicate skin. The top scholar has spoken. We absolutely cannot let you keep living in this world. His massive palm landed on my chest. Before you die, you'll give this old man one last pleasure. I'll make sure your death comes quick. He pinned me down on the grass mat, the pain so intense I couldn't even muster the strength to speak. After finishing, the groom carried me into the mountains on his back, likely his first time committing such robbery and murder. He tried several times but couldn't bring himself to strangle me outright. Just ahead lay a small cliff. The bright moonlight silently hung at the horizon's edge. Beneath the deep cliffs lay a desolate darkness. Like a serpent that could devour hearts, the coachman sharpened his knife against the stones of the cliff. Seizing my chance, I leaped forward, my gaunt figure vanishing completely into the night. On the other hand, although Xiao Zishou had achieved the top rank in the imperial examinations, he was new to officialdom and lacked the funds to navigate the bureaucratic circles. The Jiang family, eager to secure this newly minted top scholar, offered a lavish dowry. His marriage to Jiang Jinyu was celebrated with great pomp and splendor. Many who came to offer congratulations tactfully avoided mentioning how Jiang Jinyu had remarried less than a month after becoming a widow. No one mentioned me, the discarded wife, either, but less than a month after our wedding. Xiao Zishou changed his tune. Congratulations, top scholar, your wife is already 2 months pregnant. He smashed the teacup. Bullshit. We've only been married for a month. How could the child be this big? The elderly physician's calm, earnest gaze swept over his head before ultimately settling into silence. Xiao Zishou quickly composed himself. For 3 consecutive days, he claimed official duties kept him working overnight at the government office. Late on the 4th night, a servant arrived with a message. My lord, I saw a dark figure heading toward the rear residence. If you return now, you might just catch them. Xiao Zishou drew his long sword and rushed back to his manor. Behind the tranquil rockery a light had unexpectedly appeared. 2 entwined shadows fell upon the rockery's stone wall. Xiao Zishou felt dizzy with rage as he stormed in, sword in hand. Behind the rockery, Jiang Jinyu was panting heavily, murmuring incessantly. Beneath her soft embrace lay unmistakably the sun-browned neck of the coachman. Xiao Zishou nearly jumped out of his skin with fury. Slut, we've only been married for a month. And you dare to have an affair? Confess, is the bastard in your belly this wild man's? Jiang Jinyu let out a mournful wail, her hair disheveled, never expecting a black-clad foot to ambush her from the shadows. Seeing this, the coachman hastily pulled up his pants and tried to flee. Before he could run 10 meters, 6 burly men were already waiting for him outside. Xiao Zishou was still furious. He then raised his foot again, aiming to kick Jiang Jinyu in the stomach. Jiang Jinyu nimbly dodged. Xiao Lang, please let me explain. It was all that groom who harassed me. I never meant to do anything to betray you. You weren't here tonight, and I missed you so much. I had a few drinks alone in my room, never expecting this ruffian would come and abduct me. She wept pear blossoms bathed in rain, her sobs delicate and melodious. Xiao Zhixiu felt disgusted and slapped her across the face. How dare you cheat on me? I'll make you pay for this sooner or later. Jiang Jinyu repeatedly apologized and made amends, but Xiao Zhixiu remained sullen and refused to show her any kindness. Finally, Jiang Jinyue's temper flared up. She ordered someone to stop the coachman. Enough, stop hitting him, Xiao Zhixiu. A down-and-out scholar like you should count yourself lucky to marry me. I'm just looking for someone thoughtful to share my worries with. If you were decisive enough, would I need to turn to others? She simply vented all her grievances from the past month. The Jiang family fortune is all mine. This month, you've either been out drinking with others or squandering my dowry. I can't even get abalone or bear's paw to eat. Not only do we eat so plainly at home every day, but you don't understand the slightest bit of romance. Xiao Zhixiu's face grew increasingly darker, his hands trembling uncontrollably. His face turned deathly pale as he pointed at Jiang Jinyu, too furious to speak. Jiang Jinyu showed no courtesy either, blocking the coachman's path. Your performance in bed isn't up to par either. Before marrying me, you promised you'd love and cherish me forever, giving me a life better than anyone else's. She pursed her lips and spoke with righteous indignation. You've spent so much of my money, can't I find some enjoyment for myself? Besides, even if I really were pregnant, wouldn't that be good news for you? You get to become a father without lifting a finger. You should be thanking me. Bitch. Xiao Zhixiu wanted to hit someone, but was unexpectedly struck on the head himself. He never imagined that all 6 servants in his household were actually Jiang Jinyue's people. Not a single one was on his side. After their relationship turned sour, Jiang Jinyu completely abandoned her previous gentle and proper demeanor, becoming instead a bottomless pit of extravagance. Today Jiang Jinyu took a fancy to a set of ruby-encrusted golden bird hairpins, and tomorrow she wants to feast on the signature dishes from Zhenxiu Zhai. At the slightest discomfort in her stomach, she would summon the best physician in the imperial capital, Sai Huatuo, to examine her. The elderly physician tactfully suggested that excessive intimacy during pregnancy was inadvisable, advising Xiao Zhixiu to exercise some restraint. Xiao Zhixiu couldn't take it anymore. But Jiang Xian said he was already pulling strings to secure him a decent official position, yet truly abandoning all the Jiang family's support was something he couldn't bring himself to do, but tolerating Jiang Jinyue's increasing audacity, frequently taking advantage of his absence to fool around with the coachman, this was more than his pride could bear. Then one day, walking down the street, he spotted a young girl selling shaved ice desserts and instantly felt his eyes burn. The girl pushed her cumbersome ice cart, looking around nervously. It's about to rain, and he doesn't know what's come over him. His heart aches suddenly, and tears actually glimmer in his eyes. From the private room on the 2nd floor of Zhenxiu Zhai, I watch his lonely, wretched figure and purse my lips slightly. Boss, should we send someone to teach that Xiao Zhixiu a harsh lesson? I shake my head. A simple beating won't satisfy our anger. The Ghost Festival is coming soon. Why don't we play some tricks to scare them? I marked up the map, coloring the entire Jiang family estate in red. My father has committed the most sins. Let's deal with him first. I still ache all over, but fortunately, I have money. I can afford to hire the best physicians in the imperial capital to prepare medicine for me. During the 6 years of marriage to Xiao Zhixiu, I spent every single day figuring out how to make money. He always said that gold and silver were filthy things, and that people like me who racked their brains to earn money damaged the dignity of scholars like him. I beg to differ. In summer I sell icy desserts, in winter I sell citrus fruits, in spring I dig mountain peonies from the hills, and in autumn I brew wine with wild grapes. I could practically navigate that mountain with my eyes closed. When I leaped off the cliff, they all thought I'd died, yet no one could have imagined that I had already entered the gourmet tower, secretly observing everyone. In the past, I learned the art of vocal mimicry from a wandering master. Every year during the Ghost Festival, I would use my versatile voice to pose as a spirit medium. Those who longed to hear the voices of their departed loved ones were more than willing to seek my services. Xiao Zhixiu thought I was busy from dawn till dusk just to earn my daily bread. Little did he know, I owned the most renowned delicacy house in the imperial capital. Here I was, guarding mountains of wealth, yet couldn't even take a bite of meat while staying by his side. Now it's perfect, freed from him. I can devour meat to my heart's content, I have more than enough money, and those who bullied me will get what's coming to them. I had rumors spread that a spirit medium had arrived in the imperial capital. They say this master can truly summon the souls of the departed, bringing solace to the living's longing. But for those who have committed countless evils, vengeful spirits will surely deliver retribution. That night, the moon was dark and the wind howled as Jiang Xian headed home after his shift. Sinister winds rose along the way, and at the end of the street corner lay yet another turning. The sedan bearers exchanged bewildered glances. How strange, didn't we just walk this same road moments ago? I remember walking too. But it feels like we're going in circles. The four of them exchanged words when suddenly someone exclaimed, "Could it be that we've encountered a ghost wall? I've heard that during the ghost festival, many vengeful spirits come seeking lives." Jiang Xian, sitting inside the sedan chair, grew frightened upon hearing this. He stretched his neck and shouted sharply, "Hurry home at once, don't speak such bizarre and nonsensical words." The servant boy hid in the corner helping me fumigate with smoke. I stood beneath a tree, then suddenly leaped out, arms stretched wide. Beneath the thick white powder, a pair of dark black circles framed my eyes. I mimicked mother's voice, wailing incessantly, "Jiang Lang, Pear Blossom slave misses you dearly, Jiang Lang. You killed our daughter, this isn't over between us, Jiang Lang. Back then, I sold frozen desserts to support your studies, and now you've abandoned me for another woman." A ghost. The four sedan bearers were so terrified they dropped the palanquin and fled in panic. Left trembling alone on the spot was Jiang Xian. After a patter of dripping water ceased, a wail begging for mercy came from inside the sedan curtain. I glanced lightly. Jiang Xian had already been frightened into a stroke and collapsed. My servant and I packed up our things and withdrew. Back at Zhai, I burned a handful of gold ingots for mother. Amid the flickering flames, I murmured to myself, "There are still 2 left." Early the next morning, Jiang Xian was found paralyzed at his own doorstep. All the merchants who had done business with the Jiang family came knocking, demanding repayment. Jiang Jinyu panicked and, without even bothering to find a physician for Jiang Xian, secretly took her maidservant to raid his private treasury. Every valuable item was swept clean. Jiang Xian lay sprawled on the bed, his eyes wide with uneven breaths. "Give me my money, I need to find a doctor." Jiang Jinyu didn't listen to her. When the Jiang family servants discovered the storeroom was empty, they also sensed something was wrong. The bolder ones began stealing things, preparing to leave. Jiang Jinyu returned home to find Xiao Zuxiu actually engaged in lively conversation with a woman selling ice cream. She stormed forward angrily, "Xiao Zuxiu, my father is ill now as his son-in-law. Why haven't you gone to see him? Are you secretly missing that Jiang Guanbai? It's just a bowl of lowly shaved ice dessert, what's there for you to pine over?" When Xiao Zuxiu looked at her again, the warmth and concern that once filled his eyes were gone. "My affairs are none of your business. Your father's ill, excellent. When I decide to divorce you, no one will be able to stop me." Jiang Jinyu wasn't afraid of him either, hugging her money box as she went inside. The two of them probably didn't know that I'd already secretly arranged everything, just waiting for them to turn on each other like dogs. With Jiang Xian falling ill, the good official position originally promised to Xiao Zuxiu was no longer being offered. Xiao Zuxiu felt even more grief-stricken and indignant. He was drinking himself into a stupor at the tavern when a masked peddler happened to pass by. High reward offered for spring breeze paintings. The more refined the lady depicted, the higher the price. Xiao Zuxiu was worrying about where to get money when he secretly approached street vendors and drew pictures of Jiang Jinyu fooling around with a carriage driver. When Jiang Jinyu later discovered that bookshops were suddenly flooded with drawings of herself, she was so humiliated she wished she could die. She immediately threw a tantrum at home, threatening to hang herself. But Xiao Zuxiu paid her no mind. He took the money and bought himself an official post. When he passed by the pastry stall again, he chased after that young girl, declaring he would take her as his concubine. "I must have been blinded by lard, that bitch," Jiang Jinyu cried, "and I completely lost my senses. I've failed Wanbai. I knew Jiang Jinyu had ill intentions, yet I still allowed her to harm Wanbai. In this life, I can no longer repay Wanbai's kindness. Next life, in the next life, I will surely treat her well. He knelt before the little girl, wailing in tears. It's all my fault for failing Wanbai. You look so much like her. I truly wished to keep you by my side. I immediately had someone bring Jiang Jinyu over. After listening behind the screen for half an hour, she came out gnashing her teeth. Xiao Zishou, what's so great about that bitch? As long as I'm alive, I'd rather die than let you take a concubine. Women can be so domineering sometimes. Jiang Jinyu had several lovers herself, but the moment she heard Xiao Zishou wanted a concubine, she couldn't control her jealousy. The two ended up brawling fiercely at Zhenxiu Tower. Seeing the situation turning bad, the shopkeeper immediately went to report it to the authorities. These incidents were written into lengthy accounts by those who couldn't stand Xiao Zishou and were slipped into the hands of several censors within a few days. The supervising censors reported these matters to the emperor. The newly crowned top scholar actually abandoned his lawful wife. Scandalous rumors about the top scholar's wife are spreading everywhere in the pleasure quarters, publicly abducting common women, forcibly taking the Snow Mountain maiden as his concubine. We haven't even issued the imperial decree appointing him to office, and he's already caused so much trouble. Does our imperial examination system exist merely for show? Guards, exile Xiao Zishou, sentence him to face-cutting punishment. When the imperial eunuchs and guards arrived with the decree to confiscate the family property, Jiang Jinyu was frolicking in the hot spring pool with the stable hand, terrified. Her beautiful face drained of color as she pleaded desperately for mercy. The sharp-eyed old eunuch recognized her instantly. She had once been the wife of a short-lived noble heir. The old eunuch didn't mince words. You remarried in haste less than 6 months after the death of young Master Chen, truly unbecoming of a virtuous woman. That said, although young Master Chen was usually fond of mischief, it's hardly likely he'd suddenly drop dead. This servant shall report to His Majesty at once. We must conduct an autopsy on young Master Chen immediately, investigate his death thoroughly. Jiang Jinyu knelt begging for mercy, but this time, no one came to protect her anymore. From then on, I could finally conduct business openly in the imperial capital. The emperor of the Han dynasty was a good man. He once issued an edict allowing women to engage in commerce, as long as they paid commercial taxes on time and possessed independent female household registration documents. Women could also become owners of merchant caravans. At Zhenxiu Lu, I ordered 2 signature dishes, both meat. As I ate, tears streamed down my face. Who knew life could be this wonderful without men waiting to be served? The silver I earned myself means I can eat chicken legs whenever I want. If I want to wear fine clothes, I'll wear fine clothes. The day Xiao Zishou was officially exiled, I dressed myself beautifully and went outside the city to burn incense for my mother. Outside the city gates, my donkey cart ambled along leisurely. On the other side, Xiao Zishou was shackled with iron fetters, each step heavy with burden. Suddenly he raised his eyes, pupils contracting sharply. Wanbai, you're alive. Your husband misses you every single day. He looked at me again, rosy lips lightly touched, adorned in resplendent robes, gemstone necklaces, pearl earrings. She exuded the noble demeanor of a wealthy heiress. He froze in place. How did you become so rich? Have you been hiding secret savings? He slapped his thigh several times in anger. Had I known you were this wealthy, I would never have written you that divorce letter. I sneered. Xiao Zishou, do you think I'm stupid? I'm no Wang Baochuan from those operas, giving up my privileged life as a chancellor's daughter just to dig for wild vegetables. The silver I've earned through hard work shall be spent only on myself. As for you, a weak and useless heartbreaker, still dreaming of inheriting my family's fortune, not a chance. I watched the light fade from his eyes. Gone was the refined elegance he'd shown when writing me that divorce letter. Truth be told, I felt pretty damn satisfied. He flicked his sleeve dismissively. I don't care. When I wrote the divorce letter, I didn't know you were this wealthy. According to the laws of this dynasty, when a couple separates peacefully, household property shall be divided equally between husband and wife. That divorce letter is now null and void. Hurry up and give me the money to buy my freedom." He howled like a stray dog on the road, annoyed by the noise. I simply tossed a small silver ingot to the guard. This man's gone mad, he mistakes any wealthy woman he sees for his wife, utterly unbearable. The guard weighed the small silver ingot in his hand and flashed an understanding smile. "Look at what you're saying, he's just a worthless freeloader. Everyone in the imperial capital knows he passed off his own wife as his sworn sister just to climb the social ladder. How could he have the face to do something so shameful?" I smiled and drove my little donkey cart toward the golden Buddha temple. Kneeling before the Buddha, I earnestly told my mother that I was doing well now. If there were any regrets left in my life, it would be that my mother never got to see all that I have now. At the golden Buddha temple, I lit 49 eternal lamps in my mother's memory. From now on, I'll travel north and south with merchant caravans. The world is vast. And I'll move forward with blessings and hope. After finishing the incense offering, I returned to the old alley carrying 2 roasted chickens. I told Granny that I'd found another good man, that my new husband treats me well, and asked her not to worry. Before leaving, Granny was reluctant to see me go and even packed 2 jars of bin paste for me. "One by, my dear child, may you be well in the days to come, have children early with your new husband. Leave that good-for-nothing xiaozeshio behind, and your days will be nothing but happiness from now on." Thick trails of tears glistened in my eyes. I lied to Grandma. I didn't find a man. I've been working very hard to earn money, but I dare not say I'm wealthy. I understand the principle of not flaunting one's riches. Returning to Zhenxiu Tower, the attendant came forward and said, "The merchant caravan is ready. Where shall our first stop be?" I tap on the vast grasslands and expansive coastline marked on the map, pondering. "Let's head south to trade some seafood." The servant adds, "The old servant from the Jiang residence came looking for you, saying your father needs someone to care for him now." A cold smirk flickered across my face. "Go tell them that the Jiang family's second young miss is already dead. She was thrown off the cliff by the groom long ago and devoured by wild beasts. Didn't old Master Jiang say before that Jiang Wanbai wasn't his daughter? What kind of relative comes forward now?" As he spoke, a white-haired old codger was suddenly shoved through the doorway. I lifted my sleeve to cover my face. God, what a stench! Jiang Xian's mouth hung slack with drool. "I'm your father, Wanbai. I'm your father." Pretending not to recognize him, I took out my female household registration document. "Old man, you've mistaken me for someone else. My name is Yu Wanbai. My mother was a merchant's daughter who sold icy desserts, and I lost my father when I was little. I take my mother's surname, and my children will take mine too. You won't get a single penny from me." Jiang Xian was left standing at the door. The servants no longer wanted to deal with him, and he was left abandoned on the street. I traveled south with the merchant caravan, witnessing sunrises and sunsets over the coastal islands. I learned to pry oysters from the reefs. Dried seaweed and mussels were brought back by me to the imperial capital. In winter, when vegetables were scarce, braised kelp with tofu or stewed chicken tasted absolutely fantastic. Later, my merchant caravan arrived again at the vast grasslands. Freshly slaughtered beef and lamb were truly delicious. Inside one of the grassland tents, I caught sight of a vaguely familiar figure. Jiang Jinyu, heavy with child, lay sleeping in the sheepfold when she was savagely whipped by her mistress, whose face burned with jealousy. The grassland woman kept shouting barbarian words I couldn't understand. The guide told me the beaten Han woman was once a noble lady from the imperial capital. She'd killed her own husband and was sent here by her in-laws to atone for her sins. That woman's heart is vicious as poison. While her man sought pleasure elsewhere, she seduced the stablehand right under his roof. We grassland women don't care much about chastity either. If we find someone we fancy, we just get together. She actually poisoned her first husband just to marry her second one. That really shouldn't be. The female guide commented on her with great relish, not forgetting to drag me into the tent to eat ice-cooked lamb stew. I bartered with her using tea leaves and salt, loaded with carts full of wool and lambs. The calves headed south of the river again, the poet said. How fair the southern shore, scenes I knew of yore. At sunrise, river blooms outshine fire. In spring, green waves grow bluer by the hour. Sounds so enticing. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.